Welcome. My name is Robin Perlmutter. I'm a peer counselor here at Support Connection. I'd like to welcome you all to our nationwide webinar on the rules for grief and loss with Emily Laitman. Remember that Emily Laitman is sharing her expertise tonight, and any information, questions pertaining to individual concerns that you want to follow up on, you can discuss with your own personal counseling professionals. It is with my great pleasure that we have Emily Laitman. She is a grief counselor at the Bereavement Center and a group facilitator where she works with families dealing with the loss of a child, sibling, spouse, or parent. She is also a psychotherapist in private practice with offices in New York City and Westchester. Her practice includes bereavement, grief counseling, couple counseling, therapy with adults and adolescents and family systems. In 2008, along with parents from her support group, she wrote a book, Our Children, Our Hearts, The Journeys of Child Loss. Thank you, Emily, for sharing your time with us tonight.
Thank you, Robin. Hi, everyone. I want this to be helpful to all of you, so I would very much like you to participate in the Q&A at the end. Take some notes if you wish, and please let me speak with you individually if you have some special needs or special requests and questions, okay? So as we all know, I think, we all deal with grief in our own way. There's no right or wrong way to deal with grief. It may depend on your age at the time of your loss, and your life stage. In other words, were you starting a marriage? Were you starting a new job, relocating when you suffered a loss? But most importantly, it depends on the relationship that you have with your loved one, and the emotional and the psychological connections. How do you navigate and manage your loss? That may depend on history of loss. In other words, how old were you when you lost your first grandparent, or a family friend, or a child in school, a friend in school? And we look back and we say, well, how did I go through it? How did I get through it then? Was it traumatic? What struggles and challenges did you face? And how did you get through it? What, if you suffered a loss, did you build resilience and strength, which is pretty often the case? But when we talk about how individuals get through it, we're reminded of the stages of loss. You know that the first is the shock and the numbness and the disbelief. And then we get into anger. Could be anger at the person who you feel abandoned you, or it could be anger at a doctor or anger at a family member. The depression, the hopelessness, and lastly, the acceptance. Long time. And maybe there was excessive crying and isolation from others. Or maybe there was a feeling of denial and disbelief. I'm not going through this. I'm absolutely fine. I don't need any help. I'm good. But honestly, maybe you were just hiding under the covers for that too. So we also say that there's no timeline for grief. Well, if someone says to you, you know, you've been sad and grieving for like 4 or 5 months. Aren't you feeling any better right now? We don't feel that there's any timeline and a feeling of I should be over it. We say that maybe you can get through it, but in terms of getting over it, no one is going to put that mandate on you. In the beginning, you get notes and maybe calls from your friends and family as to what occurred. And then others begin to move forward with their lives. You don't. You're still there. You're still hurting and in pain and sad. So when anyone says to you, you know, it's time's up, it's been X amount of months, so you should, which I hate that word, you should move forward. Ain't gonna happen that way. We talk about the different themes of loss and grief. There are common reactions to grief. The physical, fatigue, insomnia. I think if you can understand this, you can also present your compassion and sensitivity to others. Even though you may not be suffering the grief, a family member, this fatigue and insomnia, it's draining on your whole body. The emotional, of course, anger, irritability, anxiety, depression. And then we have the cognitive, the lack of concentration, inability to focus, recurrent thoughts that you can't get out of your mind. So maybe sleep is an issue. Behavioral. So the impaired work. Maybe you have internal conflicts, alcohol, a decrease in activities, and avoidance of others. So those are the common reactions to grief. Many, many others. So another thing that we talk about is helping others help you. Using your strength to educate others and finding out what they need and want. Many people say, please say his name out loud. Please say her name out loud that I can hear as a reminder that you're still with me. Or allow me to spend time alone. I just need to be by myself, or maybe it's the opposite. I really would like to be with you and share with you and talk with you if you're willing to do that. Or check in with me, please. I would love for you to do that with texting, just letting me know that you're there for me when I'm ready. I'm not ready to go out right now. Thanks for the invitation. I'd love to be with you, but I just can't deal with that at this point. Or I'll tell you what I really could use. I'd be very appreciative of some food. If you want to drop off something, I'd be really delighted. If you want to share some pictures with me of him or her, that would make me feel wonderful. So trying to get others, trying to get your loved one, to share with you what they need and want, and you being responsive and compassionate and sensitive to do that. Thing that we try to stay away from, I said it before, is the shoulds. You should be, you should be. You might hear that from friends and family. You really should be going out more. You should be exercising again. You should be eating better. Those are things we try to stay away from as friends and family. You may need to limit the visitors. May need help with decision making, and we suggest that you don't make any big decisions right away. But asking and reaching out to others is really a sign that you are moving forward towards healing, which, again, we don't know how long that will be. Many people seek out a bereavement counselor for some support. They may be in therapy, but they may be with a therapist who doesn't have a lot of expertise on loss and grief. So taking a hiatus from your own therapy might be good to meet with a specialist, a bereavement counselor. At a certain point, after some individual sessions, you may be ready to do some group, which I believe is extremely helpful. We'll talk about that again later with coping. but meeting with a group, talking with people who've been there where you've been and how they're moving forward would be great. There are lots of good articles on grief and loss and books and Google. You don't need to read the entire book. In fact, I would stay away from that. It's just too long, and a lot of it is just not what you need and what your focus is. Going to a bookstore, sitting down for a while, I find more helpful than going online and reading, because then you can select sections that are helpful. Later on, Robin will have a handout of normal grief responses, or maybe email to you, I'm not sure. But so that you know that your reactions to grief are common and normal. Just as an example, I still sense my brother's presence. I still sense that he's there. I think he's in the room, and I'm expecting him to walk through the door and hear his voice. A lot of people feel that way about someone that they've lost. I'm wandering aimlessly. I forget things. I can't concentrate. Again, normal. I have an empty feeling in my stomach. I just don't have the appetite. I don't have the interest in cooking. I don't have any interest in doing anything. These are things that are not just unique to you. They're common to many people. In fact, I would say all people who are going through, and there are many more. So let's just take a look at some of the coping strategies. We all take on unique strategies for healing. And I believe, and we do for ourselves, what works. Everything, anything is okay as long as it's safe and healthy. Find someone that you trust. Talk to her or him. Share some feelings. Take care of yourself. And by that, I mean resting, eating well. Maintain a daily routine. This is the most important part of getting through a loss. Trying to get back to a routine that you had. I get up in the morning, I have my coffee, I have my breakfast, I do a little exercise, or I watch the news on TV, whatever maybe you're not ready to go to work, maybe you are. But try to get back to whatever that routine worked for you. Take one thing at a time and allow extra time for whatever you're doing. Distractions are good. Reading a book, although very few people that I know can get through an entire book, and prefer short story books, so that you can read one short story that's 5 or 8 pages and then close the book and just deep breaths. And by the way, relaxation and meditation, highly, highly recommended. You can try, after a period of time, you can try to make some minor decisions. Hold off on the major ones. You're not moving, you're not selling your place, but minor decisions. Journaling, maybe you've heard about journaling, writing letters to your loved one. And if prompts it may not come easy. Hi, honey, I'm thinking of you. I saw someone today that walked just like you. Hard to get through it, but when you're ready, sharing feelings by journaling is a good thing. Not a diary, not every day, but just when you feel a need to connect. We have, you can look online, but I can give you some suggestions if you ever want it for the prompts. And by prompts, we mean starting of the sentence and then finishing. I don't know where to begin. I just want to talk to him. I want to see him. I don't know where to begin. One prompt that I thought when I saw you today, I felt like, then you finish it. I'm so sorry that we never had a chance to, you finish it. Sad, but good for you to try to open up a little bit. Some people carry a object, a linking object, like a piece of jewelry around their neck, but with a picture of your loved one. Or spend some time in his space or her space, her room, her office or desk, and just sit and think. Don't do it if it's too awkward and it doesn't work. Don't force yourself to do anything that I'm suggesting. Try to do something to help someone else. I know personally, in getting through my own grief, when someone else lost a child, maybe a year after I lost my son, I just remember that it was helpful to go to a neighbor, friend of a neighbor, who had also suffered the same type of loss, and just sit and share and let them, and just listen, because that's the best part of helping someone, is just listening. Consider a support group. As I say, when you're ready, maybe after some individual sessions, people having similar experiences, you learn from them, you learn what worked for them, what coping strategies they use. I have people in a group that I run facilitate. Some of them have been there for close to 3 years. Not every month, not every time we meet, but I really would like to come back. I've had a hard time this month. Absolutely. So if you can find a support group that would allow you to do that, it would be helpful. Beginning your day with your loved one, you're going to do it anyway. You're going to probably wake up in the morning and say, oh, and can't get him or her out of your mind. So if your grief is young, since you'll wake up thinking of him anyway, try to engage your soul. And by that, I mean some deep breaths, some meditating. If you don't know how, lots of good courses and stuff online to learn to meditate. Or what some people like to do, spending time in nature, walking, going to the park, maybe going to the botanical gardens and just feeling outside when the weather's feeling good. Give yourself some rewards. Do things that you really, really enjoy or used to enjoy. You'll get back to it. Maybe your favorite meal or his or her favorite meal in remembering them. Something frivolous that makes you feel good. We talk about keeping her memory alive. How do I do that? How can I possibly, I remember her every day. I can't forget her. What do you mean keeping her memory alive? Honoring your loved one. And this is trying to keep the connection. We don't want them to be forgotten. And I'll repeat that. We don't want them to be forgotten. So we say that we have pictures. Some of us still can't look at pictures if it's too early on in the loss. But when we can, we look at pictures, we look at our phone, we even try to retrieve their voice on a voicemail. Sounds good. When I say retrieve, I'm saying not necessarily listening to the voicemail, but thinking about it in our head, retrieving in our head his or her voice. Some people feel the connections, they're ready to go to a psychic or a medium. They have them for groups, they have them for individuals. Seeing your loved one on the other side and keeping that connection. Simply talking about her with good friends. And as I said, saying her name. Having a plaque, maybe, or a tree planted, or a bench. I've seen lots, a bench on walks, a memory walk. She loved to walk. We're going to have a walk on her anniversary and remember her that way. Keeping photos or quotes that are special. Maybe having a little small book. I will just show you, I think if you can, maybe you can see it. This is a little book that I encourage people to get a hold of. It's called Grief, Reminders for Healing. And it's just, you can put it in your purse, you can put it in your pocket, and they're really beautiful. Gail Massey, Massey, wrote it in the early 90s. It's been redone and redone by others. So I'll just open to a page. It says, you may never resolve all the issues surrounding her death. I don't know if you can see that. And I would say there are about 15 pages of quotes and just nice things to keep them alive in your heart. And here's another one that I purchased, and you can purchase. It's a small, very small 3-inch by 3-inch book, mini, and you can put pictures in there or quotes or things that you would like to remember and keep them. Inviting friends or family on her anniversary, on the date that she died or the month that she died, having people come. Birthdays and anniversary dates are very, very important. You may not remember the date of your friend's mom who passed away, but you will remember the season. Oh, I remember it was winter and there was a lot of snow on the ground, but I'm not, I think it was February 10th, but I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. If you can reach out to someone and say, thinking of you, know this is a tough time of year. Goes a long way. Some people on a birthday, especially if it's a child or a young person, they send up balloons with a little message attached on the string of the balloon. Cooking, I know maybe the favorite was chicken parmesan, so that night we're making chicken parmesan for everybody. Scheduling a hike. Well, love to walk, love to hike. He was a runner, so we're going to do a walk or a run or a hike in his memory. Know a number of people who've made gardens and flowers in a place that people can come and visit. Feels good. Someone that I know recently did a bake-off, Baking with Kate, and just had everybody come over. And they all made Kate's favorite desserts. A ski weekend. I mean, you can do anything, as long as you know that you're doing this to keep his memory alive. A day of remembrance, workshops, attending a workshop like this so that you can get just some updates on grief and loss, what to do. But keep in mind that these anniversary dates, birth dates, are very, very meaningful to the family member who lost someone. Holidays, oh my goodness. There's really too much to talk about. We should have a separate workshop for that. But what we don't realize is how many holidays have happy, merry, happy, merry, merry, happy. And a lot of people have difficulty getting through these times because I'm supposed to be happy, but I can't be. I'm supposed to be happy New Year. Oh, well, what's so happy about this New Year now that I've suffered this loss? Do I decorate for Christmas? Do I bother? Are we going to have family come over like we did in years past? Am I going to cook like I did in years past? Ask someone else to help out. Do you go out and shop and hear the sounds of the holidays and the music of the holidays? Or do you stay home and try to go online and order gifts? Some people can't do gifts at all. But reach out to friends and family and say, this year, would you mind doing it at your house? And I'd be happy to bring something. Oh, of course, will usually be the response. You know, it's funny that emptiness becomes heavier during the holiday season. And I find it pretty paradoxical because something empty feels heavier. How can that be? We can talk more about holidays. I can give you some suggestions, but I think we're just going to move on a little bit. We can come back to it if any of you have some questions. Life, life after loss. Giving yourself permission to move forward. We move forward in time, but we also move further away from him or her in time. She was part of my world. So now, does it get easier or harder? Maybe some of you can answer that for me a little bit later. So what are the signs of moving forward? Or some people like to use healing or closure. Some people are turned off with those words, whatever you choose. But what are the signs of moving forward? Returning to old routines if you haven't already done so. Socializing more if you used to. You're still sad and remembering him, but it's with less intensity and frequency. As an example, I still cry every day, but I don't cry 10 times a day. I'm not constantly crying. I'm not under the covers. I get out. Reaching out to a friend. Well, she hasn't called me. Why should I reach out to her? A lot of reasons why she hasn't been able to call you. But if you feel you need her, what's the risk? What's the loss? You've already gone through a lot. Another sign of moving forward, easier to focus, easier to concentrate. And giving yourself permission to say, I'm not ready yet. Thank you. In other words, taking care of yourself, being in charge of yourself, being in control. I'm not ready yet, but you're terrific. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. When asked, how you doing? If you say, fine, I'm okay, fine. Is that really what you feel? Or are you able to say what you really, really feel? And that is, well, I have good days, I have bad days, especially the evenings are hard for me. Another sign of moving forward is wanting companionship and wanting to connect. Even if you're someone who feels that being alone works better for you, must be something that you can do where you're surrounded with others and just feel more comfortable. Allowing yourself to laugh. I know that many of us feel it's disloyal. I can't laugh. I'm not happy. I can't. And if I start to laugh and be happy, people are going to think that I've moved on and I've forgotten her. This is a piece of taking care of yourself. You're not being disloyal. You're trying to give yourself a little bit of room and space to be happy. So hearing a joke, I know someone was telling me for the first time, she heard a friend tell a very funny joke and she couldn't control herself and she was laughing hysterically and then put her hands to her mouth as if, I shouldn't do this. I'm not supposed to be happy. She would not want me to be happy. That's a myth. Not true. Not true. Give yourself a little bit of a break. You know, we talk about rituals. Rituals are so very, very important. I don't know if any of you have been impacted by COVID, where you've lost someone who you've loved, but it's another loss without the ability to hug and hold and share, which is so vital in our country and our culture. And being able to say, I'm sorry, at a shiver or a funeral or a wake. The relatives would have been present. Everybody would have been there. You would have had a funeral with hundreds and hundreds of people, but that you were deprived of it. And then, of course, the most important part of loss and a ritual is being able to say, I'm so sorry, and the ability to say goodbye. How many of us have been deprived of the ability to sit with our loved one and talk at last moments because of COVID or being denied that. So my heart, my sadness goes out for all of you, for even attending. But I hope that I can give you something that you'll be able to take away and learn from this seminar. I'm going to stop a little early because I think it would be helpful to really attend to your questions and comments.
Thank you.
I have a question about when you were talking about the book and then you held up the other little item. Can you describe that more? I'm definitely going to get that book. It sounds like amazing. But the other little item, I didn't really get what it was and I wanted to find out more about that.
Sure. I don't know, AI Friedman, I think, has gone out of business, but this is where I purchased a number of them, and it's a empty pages, blank pages, but it's just a little book and it's tied up with a ribbon. And I like it because it's so small.
Right.
But the pages are empty. There's nothing on them. You can put a quote that you like or a saying or a photo, a small photo, and just keep it with you.
Yeah, that's what I like about that. That sounds great. Yeah.
The grief reminders for healing. I'll just open it and share a couple more with you.
Okay.
You may have to ask for what you need, and others may need to know. Give them opportunities to help. So this is what I spoke about in the beginning of sharing with others and reaching out to others and helping.
Right.
Okay. Here's another one. You will forget they are gone and then remember again, and your heart will break one more time.
So true.
Grieving just takes as long as it takes. This is a process. We don't grieve overnight and then say the next day, okay, finished. Goes on. It is a process. It may never truly change. It may never end. But there will be some differences.
Yeah, I don't want to take up all the time from other people, but I had just one other quick question. I feel like, yes, I feel like in my case, I learned to live with it. I feel like I'm never going to get over this, but I learned to live with it, and I can remember things and smile where it took like 3 years, like where I was always crying in the beginning, but I can remember great memories and smile about all that now. But I feel that as I get older, this is about my mom. I miss her more than ever. It seems like it gets harder. So I think that, but you learn to live with it. And that's why I like that little book, and I like the little blank one, because for me, my mom is always with me in my heart. It's not about going to a cemetery. She's not there. She's with me. She's in my heart. And I feel her with me all the time. That's how I deal with it,
Very nice.
But
And
thank you. It was beautiful what you said, really. Thank you so much.
we say that you'll never get over it, but you will get through it.
Right.
You will get through it. And what you say is you've kind of adjusted and adapted and you acceptance. But
Right.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Really. Thank you.
What do you recommend to people, like when you've lost an elderly parent, say, a very elderly parent, and people kind of write it off, like it's, and say for my mom was 99 when she died, and I absolutely know it was not a tragedy, but it's your loss. And I can't tell you like how many people just said, well, oh, thank God you had her that long. But you're feeling that pain because it's someone you loved so much, and you're recognizing it's not the act, not, as I said, a tragedy. But what do you recommend to say to people, or like how do you get support in that case where people kind of say, oh well, they lived long enough, it's your personal loss, though, your mom or your dad is always that person.
Some people feel that they have to say something.
Mhm.
They, well, look, she had a long life. She lived well. And they're trying to be kind and sensitive and compassionate to you. But it's their need to say something.
Mhm.
And you said, what should I respond with? I would just say, right, thank you. Doesn't have to get into a discussion.
Mhm.
When you're going to argue and say, well, it's different for me, then you probably don't want to talk about it. This is their view and their need to reach out to you. So you can just acknowledge by saying, thank you.
But in those cases, I mean, I didn't have such grief that I kind of had a very good relationship with my mom, so I was okay with, I understood. But for people, because I know some people that really have suffered a lot when they've had an older person in their life die, and how do they, I guess, do they go to a support group? Like, where do you recommend those people?
I think support groups really are wonderful in the answer. I know that here in Scarsdale, the Bereavement Center offers support groups for people who've lost a spouse, people who've lost a parent, people who've lost a child, and I think that talking with others and having a facilitator who can extract feelings that maybe were untouchable before, and it's comforting to be with people who are going through the same type of loss. I also lost my mother. I also lost my mother. My mother died. She was young, and my mother died. She was older. It's a terrific experience. So I would really look for a support group.
Thank you. Thanks.
I liked what you said about the journaling and writing to your loved one. Because something I was thinking about that comes up a lot for me, for people I talk to with grief is a couple of things. You feel guilty that you just maybe didn't do enough. And maybe there's things you didn't get to ask. Things that, I mean, people find themselves saying, oh, I got to ask them, and you can't anymore. So is there a book, a specific workbook or resource for the journaling with the prompts that you know of? Or is that something you just
I
came
don't
up with on
have
your own?
one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there must be. I use my own way of journaling,
Okay.
and some support groups offer that and get you to do that. When we had our child loss group, we still have it. It's a different group of people, but the book that I wrote, people offered a few pages of not necessarily how their child died, not how, but how they survived it, how they navigated afterwards.
Okay.
And that it wasn't journaling in the true sense, but it was an essays. 26 parents wrote essays
Wow.
of the loss and how they have coped, or maybe the holidays, and siblings wrote something on sibling loss, which, by the way, we haven't even mentioned, but that's another thing, another kind of loss that people say, oh, yeah, she lost her sister, but not a big deal. At least it wasn't her parent, or at least we call them the forgotten people, siblings. When you go to a funeral or a wake and people come up and say, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, my condolences. And most of the time, people don't say anything to a sibling.
Really?
And you just don't think about it because there's somebody else of perhaps more importance, but not true. Yeah.
Interesting. Marlene, go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I just wondered if you could speak briefly about the component of survivor guilt in grieving.
Can you make your question a little more specific?
Well, in working with the population that we serve at Support Connection, women who are struggling with, I've managed to survive this disease when my friend or my mother or my sibling did not, and managing survivor guilt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's tough. That's really rough. But keep in mind that the survivor guilt is from within you. And to think of it in a negative is not as helpful as thinking of it, well, I managed, she didn't, but I managed to get through this, and I'm going to try to find a way of continuing my life and remembering her while I do that. In other words, to reframe it in a way, I feel guilty that I survived and she died. Yes, I do. And that's part of what we haven't talked about tonight also is regrets. We all have regrets of shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Had I done this, had I done that? But I guess I was lucky, and she's always going to remain in my heart because I'm still around.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not really not answering your question as well as I think I should be able to. But it's something that people that I work with in therapy, we talk about a lot.
Okay, and perhaps that would be a recommendation then. Okay,
Like it doesn't, a therapist or a bereavement counselor, and to undo that and work it through and verbalize some of those feelings. That's probably the best way to get rid of survivor guilt.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you have groups where you are, Robin?
So we currently have a group for men who have lost a spouse or partner. And so that's been something that has, and it's facilitated by a gentleman who has lost his spouse. And that's been taking place for several years. And that's been a nice opportunity for men, and especially since Zoom, it's opened it up to people regardless of where they live. But it does make me, I was going to ask you, while everyone, and this will be, I guess, the closeout, and I know you probably can't answer this quickly, but it seems that, grief is unique to all of us. We all, like you said, we all grieve in our own way, but do you find that for men, it's a bit different than for women, and there are different, I guess, tools that they access more frequently than women for coping?
Yeah, I think so. But that's also because they're supposed to.
Okay.
I've got to perform the way I'm
Okay.
supposed to.
Okay.
And there are many men who are more verbal, more sensitive and compassionate than any woman I know.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
So it's
absolutely.
not necessarily gender related,
Right.
but I'll tell you that a group that I run now is all women, but men are invited as well, but it seems to be all women. Why is that? I'm not sure,
Right.
but maybe they have other ways of coping, dealing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So that's basically ends our presentation. And Emily, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation discussion and your passion and dedication and commitment to deepening our understanding on this very important subject. And I want to thank you all of you who came out tonight to participate and listen as well. Really, it's been wonderful, and we hope to see you soon on the next webinar. And Emily, thank you again. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night.